Okay guys, so we're going to make a start and we'll hope that everyone else who's sort of hanging around the back will come and join us. So this is the sort of, well hopefully it's all been interesting, but this is the slightly more informal social side of the event where what we thought we'd do is we'd get a few of the farmers that have kindly come and spoken to some of you already, and we just asked them some questions. So chairing the panel we've got myself, James Daniel, and Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Whaley from FWAG SW, and I probably met most of you earlier on the diverse winter farming field lab.
So what we're going to do, we'll get our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we've got a few questions, and we'll direct those to people as we see fit. And then we'll open the floor for questions, and we'll have a mic on the floor so you guys have a chance to go along and ask them your questions as well. Okay? So yeah, Tom Armitage, you just get in the race, so we'll do name, where you farm, and a very brief bit about the farm. Bit of practice at passing the mic there, right?
Yeah, okay. Yes, I'm Tom Armitage. We farm on the edge of Exeter on the Somerset side of Benefit. We farm at 1,200 to 800 feet for an organic stabiliser beef unit that finishes at the farm.
Lovely, Tom, thank you.
Hi there, I'm Miss Priest. We're also an organic stabiliser farm. We farm up near Holsbury on a relatively wet farm with fairly heavy clay soil and about an average rainfall of 50 to 58 inches. We've also got a 600 breeding ewes as well.
Cool, thanks Liz. And Tom?
Hello, I'm Tom Burge. I farm on the north side of Exeter. We've got 450 breeding ewes, probably 500 crosses, 100 Angus cross Suffolk cows and a flock of hill sheep. Rainfall is roughly somewhere between 1,800, 1,600 now.
Very wet, Tom, but I guess a lot of that rainfall's winter rainfall, isn't it?
Yeah, all winter rainfall, hardly any summer rainfall. Not much soil to cover, lots of stones.
Yes, my name's Sam Roberts, live down in Cornwall, Weybridge, well near Padstow. We farm about 4 to 5 miles from the coast, so we get the weather. We have 150 beef suckler stabilisers and 1,200 mil of rainfall a year, roughly.
I'm Chris, and if you're still sat down, you probably don't need to say anymore, so we'll pass back to James.
Great, Chris, that's a good point. So, go into the first question? Yeah, okay, I'll read this. So, just a question to our panellists. So, what do you guys do on the farm to improve your farm business resilience? Okay, so what activities, what events, management, and yeah, Chris, we'll start with you perhaps.
When we looked at it sort of 5-6 years ago, it was all about business risk really. What was costing money on the farm. At the time I'd done the HDB farm bench as well, so I sort of had a bit of a background of what was making money, what wasn't. Also based upon my interest as well a little bit, it had to be something I was enjoying as well. But yeah, it was pretty obvious what was costing me a lot of money, and then it was trying to work out really how to sort of, correct those things that I thought you could save money on. So, there's the simple things we've been talking about all day, the feed, the fertiliser, labour to an extent, what I could do to sort of reduce those things. Pasture management was the go-to for me at the time.
For us, it was probably making a plan and sticking to it. By doing yearly planning and thinking, where do we want to be by 3 years' time, 4 years' time, and what sort of lifestyle we want to have with that. Do we want to be constantly working? Do we want to be making as much profit as possible? It's what you want to do and what you enjoy doing, I suppose.
I was struggling to get through the winters, I wanted to make my winters easier because it was so wet and just set stocking everywhere. It wasn't working, so I decided to concentrate on the shoulders and the winter of the farm.
Yeah, that wasn't invited, Tom.
Yeah, and also now with a young family, it's focusing on a bit more time and spending with the young family.
I think one of the things that Bob and I decided to concentrate on was livestock genetics, and making sure that we started down the stabiliser route in 2012, and the main reason for doing that was the high herd health, knowing that when you're buying in stock, you're buying in healthy stock, and not buying in issues with BVD and yonis and things like that, which can be a massive draw, not only financially, but on your own time and your own morale, really, because if you've got animals that are not well and you're spending a lot of time to keep things going, it's not a pleasant place to be. We've kind of brought that in with sheep as well, to make sure that we have a fairly robust culling programme, that if something's causing you a problem, you can just get rid of it and don't keep trying to prop it up and keep it going.
I guess the way we built resiliency was by going to rotational grazing, so the amount of grazing a lot more slack in the system, growing the grass. Also the genetic, mentioned it, to show on the right genetics makes a huge difference.
Thank you. What we want to talk about next is personal resilience, because I think often when we whole farm planning, we can focus on the financial aspects of a business and certain elements of performance, but farming is not just a business, it's a bit of a lifestyle, and usually we raise our families there. There's a lot of social impacts. So what I want to ask the panel was, what do you do for personal resilience in terms of making sure your mental health is well, your physical well-being, and your relationships? It's a bit of a touchy question, I know. But yeah, how do you incorporate that into your overall farm planning?
That's a real difficult one. There's never enough time up front, and we need to work harder at it. In the winter I shoot trespassing pheasants, so that keeps me happy. I was told to talk about meditation. I'm sorry, it's not my forte. I think I have a better quality.
I'm just going to interrupt. Just in terms of your family and the people closest to you, can you talk a little bit about their impact on your decision-making process and how engaged everyone is on the farm with the decisions that you're following through with, and the confidence levels within any management team on the farm as well?
Okay. So one of the things that we decided to do a few years ago was actually, somebody mentioned having a plan earlier on and sticking to it, is that actually we go away from the farm for a day and take our paperwork with us and sit down and try and make a plan for what we want to happen for the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and sometimes a bit further ahead than that, but not very often. But actually thinking about what we want to achieve from the farm, so not necessarily always thinking about what the profit is going to be, but what else we want to achieve. We found that year on year we were looking at the profit that we were or we weren't making, and that can be very depressing at times. But actually, if you set yourself some other goals or other challenges, and you see that you can achieve those things, then it makes you feel like you've actually achieved something rather than just looking at the bottom line of the accounts. So we actually try and make sure that we go away for a day or half a day every 3 or 4 months to actually discuss and decide what sort of things are going to be happening. We also try to plan in if we can go away for a weekend or a few days or whatever. I find that if we plan it and put it in the diary, then we'll go, rather than if we just say, oh well, we might go, and then we end up not actually achieving it.
Recently, I signed up to a group called Focus Farmers, and it's all about positive thinking and sort of meditating a little bit, and we'll put
Oh, that's good, Tom. Yeah.
it does help. And it helps you focus your thinking, and that helps you with the sort of stress of the business, and also just getting away with family. It's brilliant.
No, I think that's good. It's a way of saying that we've all got busy minds, and what if we could focus our energy on not just think about everything, but have a look, bring a bit of clarity. So if you go to sleep and your head's full and you wake up and your head's full, are you really productive? And do you know what you should be doing next? So there's a really cool group put forward by, who's the lady running? Holly, yes, of course, Holly Beckett. Holly Beckett's put something together called Focus Farmers. So it's neuro-linguistic programming, and it's the way of saying that if you train your brain to be more productive, and it's just like you go to a gym to be fitter, to be better, well, who wouldn't want to be better at what they could do? And we've had several discussion group members and clients gone through it, and myself and my colleagues have done the sort of first course as well. And it's really useful just gaining some clarity. So if that's something you feel personally that raises a sort of similar point, if your head's quite busy, then that's worth looking at Focus Farmers, and there's some really good courses and advice there. And why not be the best version of yourself? Particularly it gives you more time for the business and more time for the family.
Well, for us it's a bit different. I'm with my dad a lot, so we just want to get away from each other the majority of the time. So I tend to like going skiing a lot, so I tend to go there 2 weeks probably, hopefully a year. And it's just going out and doing, well, for me at my age, doing a lot of sport, getting your physical, exercising, it gets you refreshed, and it puts you in a better state of mind to start the week again with. So skiing really.
Yeah, I think my outlook on life changed a lot when I had children, really, or had one child and one on the way. I think it was probably the same time I coincided with Norma James as well. I think, I figured, life was about to get quite busy, so having someone I could be accountable to made a big difference for me. So having a mentor, someone who could keep me on track when I had other things I was thinking about was a big thing for me, I think, at the time. You don't have to do it all on your own. I think it's probably a good point. With that in mind, like finding time is a good part, good important to me as well. I don't want to miss out on a lot of things. So, having a busy farm, we're all busy people. We enjoy being busy, but it's very hard to switch off, and actually having someone to talk it through with and actually planning out so you can get that time off was, why I sort of joined up with James anyway in the first place, probably. And then it all flowed into place. Let's try to make things simple for yourself. Try and enjoy it as you go along, but still trying to join it all up and get the best out of it.
Okay, that's awesome, Chris, thank you. So the next point I would think about is maybe some people in the audience that have started or think you're starting. Maybe they've started and they've encountered some resistance, or maybe it's the resistance they've encountered that means they can't start. So what would your advice be to someone who's thinking or trying to start and encountering some resistance? Perhaps reflect on how did you start, what did you do first, what works, and really any advice you'd have for people thinking of giving this a go. And Chris, do you want to save your voice and have a little rest?
I thought, whilst I've got the microphone, I'll just carry on quickly. I'll just say a quick one, pretty much. Resistance-wise, I've been very fortunate that the family were quite, sort of open-minded for me to have a crack anyway, but most of the things I've done haven't costed a lot of money, so I wasn't putting financial pressure on it. A little bit of extra fencing here, there, and everywhere, just to sort of slide it in the kind of accounts, and they wouldn't see it. It kind of helped quite a lot. So that's pretty much how I started. But I didn't spend masses of money doing what I've done, and that sort of helps bring people around. Really, it's not you don't have to spend masses to change a lot, and that's the approach I took really. And as long as it works out and everything else, it's not a big loss if it doesn't. But at the same time, you can see the sort of quite easily you can see sort of the pressures off. The figures sort of make sense really, and then actually not spending a lot in the first place sort of was, I guess, an easy starting point for me.
For me, it's probably finding out figures and finding out what your baseline would be. It's going to someone like James or that sort of person and finding out what system works for your farm and how you want to go about it. You can spend loads of money and get it all sorted straight away, but it's better to do it gradually and yeah, instead of one big shock, it's slowly getting used to the different system, which makes it easier on your mind as well as other people's mind.
So I use the approach of setting the scene to the old man and just letting them think about it. And then when they started talking to me back about it, and then I started watering the scene and pushing, and eventually I made it like it was their idea, and it worked. And I don't know what that's what I have to do. Just make sure it's their idea.
Because your context is quite, well, you obviously work with farmers with your father as well, Tom, and just talk us through, because he's been looking after cattle for a reasonable time, and just chat to us about how, you had to sort of force him to use an electric fence, and then what's the situation now?
Yeah. So I really wanted to get the cattle into rotation, and Dad didn't want to do it, or extra work. And I said this year, I said, look, you're going to have to, because we're not going to use any fertiliser, we're going to have to manage our grass. And he started going out with the electric reel, and begrudgingly, but in the end, he was quite enjoying it, because you could see the grass growing behind them. I mean, a few things went wrong, and we did go through a little bit too fast, and probably it comes a bit too quick, but yeah, the seed's there now, and I think next year we should be fine.
One of the things that I would suggest is to go and join a discussion group, get off farm, go and see what somebody else is doing. May not be exactly what you want to do, but it's amazing what sort of ideas and tips and thoughts that you get by simply going around and looking at to see what somebody else is doing. You can question them and ask them why they're going down that route and why they're doing that. The other thing I would say is also just try something every year. I think you should try something on your farm that either scares you or is, frightens you perhaps a little bit, maybe not scares you, but doesn't have to be, don't have to change the whole system, but 5 acres of Hobel Lane or something like that isn't going to be a complete disaster if it doesn't work. So if you don't try, you're never going to know. Don't sit there and say, oh, it won't work here, unless you've actually tried it.
Yeah, I can just reiterate that really. Just have a go. Start small, have a go. Don't be afraid. Doesn't matter, who cares? Yeah, it's fine. Just give it a go. It's fun.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. So, you guys talked a little bit about what you would do to start out. In terms of the mindset shift within your own mind, that's quite a big step when we're looking at ways to be creative and ways to step out of our status quo and norm. But changing our own minds is one thing, and changing the minds of others can be another task completely. Often we get a lot of resistance from the wider consumer, media, consumers of our products, things like that, but also within our own industry. So just in terms of handling some of that sort of resistance from neighbours or other people within the farming community, or even within your own family when making changes, how have you overcome this, and any recommendations to anyone facing those challenges?
Just be brave. just go for it. It really doesn't matter. People who've got resistance, prove them wrong. Get if they're right, well, so what? Do it right next year. It's fine. Just push on and do something different.
I'd have to agree with Tom. I don't really care what the neighbour's thinking. And like somebody said to me once, it's not our business to worry about what other people think about our business. So if they don't like what we're doing, then that's up to them.
I love it, I do. And if I was talking about what you're doing and criticising, and then the next minute, or a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, you're seeing them doing exactly the same thing. I was impressed.
Okay, maybe we should ask about family. Anyone have family resistance?
No, not really. At the start he wasn't too fond of the electric fence, and he doesn't have much to do it at the moment anyway. But no, not really. it's important for your family to get along, and that's the main thing you want. But in my personal situation, it's not been a problem because my dad is pretty open-minded, so pretty lucky on that side.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It's, I'm quite lucky. No one can see where I'm from here. I'm in such a bowl. I've got no neighbours really. Sad thing is I can't see what they're doing either. But I know you've got to prove it to yourself if you're happy with what you're doing, if it's working for you. You don't get 300 people turn up on a farm for a day like this without people curious about what you're doing, what's happening. So that sort of proves it in some ways for me, probably. It's a bit of a case of you've got to be happy with what you're doing, and sort of if it's working for you, then fair play, really, isn't it? What doesn't really matter, but the bigger picture is it's quite nice to sort of see people curious about it. I think, and if they don't want to agree with you, it's not. I'm not an argumentative person, really. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, I had a friend that was bullied at a family wedding not too long ago. I fell asleep with my son at 10 o'clock, so I couldn't help him out too much. But he was bothered by the brother-in-laws. They said, it's never going to work or whatever else. But at the end of the day, no one's wrong, no one's right. Every system suits everyone. But yeah, we're quite happy where we are. And fair play to anyone else that isn't thinking that way or anything else, because there is no right, there's no wrong.
No, I think there's not necessarily right or wrong, but I think for farming to go forward and to produce this really nutritious food, it's got to tick sort of 3 boxes, hasn't it? It's got to be productive, so we can't just waste land because there's a lot of people to feed, but it's got to do that with a low or a negative carbon footprint, and it's got to look after and promote biodiversity on farm as well. So there's no right or wrong system as long as the system can tick those 3 boxes, I think, and that's the sort of way to evaluate maybe other people's systems or even your own and decide whether that's a good system that's fit for the future, that's a resilient and a profitable system. I was just going to ask the panel, is there anything that you know now that's surprised you? So since starting the change in business and change in approach, anything you found that surprised you? And what skills have you learnt along the way that you didn't have before? So what skills have you gained that maybe you've needed to develop to run the system successfully? So what surprised you and what skills have you developed?
What surprised me is how complicated I made farming, I think, probably. I spent a long time chasing my ass, actually, is probably the answer. Really, complicating a system is, the biggest surprise you'll ever find out, really, when you stop doing it. You can be a busy person without getting too far, and I think that was probably the biggest surprise to me, how easy you could make life for yourself if you want to be and still be successful. I think that's been a big change for me. What was the other question? I've forgotten already. Yeah, happy.
It's just knocking up some paddocks, to be honest with you. That's the biggest difference for us. First year we've done it, we pretty much doubled our growth rate for that year, and amazing what moving them around every 1 to 2 days will do, and keeping the grass at the right point of quality. It's trying it really.
How the stock's adapted to the system, and how easy the stock is now to just move around and bounce about it. They hear the bike coming, and then they're queuing ready to go, which is just easy. You'll just clip around the edge, check the hedges and stuff like that, and it's fine. And then you're on to your next stop. It just makes it so much more easier.
And I think that the thing that we learned was that grass does grow grass, and you just got to give it a try, and actually it will work. And even when Bob thought that it wouldn't work, it proved to himself that it would. So that was the learning point for us.
Yeah, no, definitely grass does grow grass, and the more you rotate, the better things get. And you just don't realise, you just can't believe. And it's amazing the people that you are looking over the hedge and their farmers dying off and going back because they're still set stocking and you're pumping out green stuff. It works.
Okay, that's awesome, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up for questions from the audience. So colleague Emily's got a mic, and raise your hand and we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We've heard a couple of comments the other day about grass quality, and it's quite a big thing, the 3-inch days of ryegrass. I know we're not talking about ryegrass, but about grass quality. know Becky and those people on the stage talking about carbon, do you find there's any conflict between those two things in the systems that you're running, or are you looking to change to mitigate against that conflict? If that's a fair question.
Can I sort of rephrase that for the panel and sort of say maybe how are you managing the farm? Are you managing to sequester carbon and improve the soil, or are you managing to increase the performance of livestock, or are you trying to achieve a balance? Is that fair rewording?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a balance, and it depends which stock you're looking at. And if you're wanting to grow beef, then obviously you maybe don't worry about other things, you concentrate on your quality. With supplement gains, well, obviously you can utilise them to mop up your grasses that are putting a lot of carbon in the soil, your more mature stuff. So there's definitely a balance, and the thing is to be flexible, I would say.
I think that we have to work with all of it, really. You can't be doing one part of it and not doing the other. You can't have the livestock and not be thinking about carbon, and you can't be just thinking about the carbon without some form of livestock. So I think that the two have to work together, really, in order for us all to take the businesses forward.
Yeah, I'm on the same thinking as both of them too.
I think it all depends on your state of your ground in the first place. If it's been pretty hammered by arable previously, then you would have a case of your mob grazing sort of style, but it also depends on what your personal situation is. Have you got a mortgage? Have you got other things on your mind? Have you got other priorities?
Skiing holiday.
Yeah, skiing holiday too, two of them. But it's where you want your farm to end up at the end of it. And in all mob grazing, your paddock grazing, it will all increase, but at what speed you want it to increase at is,
I think the great thing I've learned over the few years, if you cock something up, you can call it something different, and so you got away with it. So say you've got a lot of pasture that's gone over where you should be grazing it. Yeah, I'm just all grass grazing this year. Yeah, it seems to suit my system this year. So I've deferred grass because it's got too far ahead. So I'll just call it deferred grazing for this year. Yeah, you can sort of wing it that way. So, but no, I think there's benefits from every system. Weather changes so fast, farms change so fast, and an old chap told me once that I've been farming 1 year 50 times over, everything changes every year, so like having different systems that you can implement at different seasons, different weather situations is very, very helpful. Knowing those systems and how best to implement them is quite a good keen thing, but I think, there's nothing wrong with tall grass grazing at times. I think, the field out there, the car park field then is quite an interesting one. There was 1 or 2 paddocks there I've left because I was sort of waiting for some dairy heifers to be sold for breeding or whatever else, and they were left and sort of got to a stage where they were a bit mature, they shed their seeds, they've seeded, and it looks like I've reseeded a triangle, and it was simply because it was an accident, it didn't mean to happen or whatever else, but it was just the case that happened at the time, it was there, and I sort of went with it. And you look at it and think, yeah, I did that on purpose actually, it was just a trial and it worked out quite well. I think there's no perfect answer. I think there's a lot to be said for good quality grazing at the simple rate, but implicating different things at different times makes a big difference on the farm.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else with a question?
This is an easy gig, isn't it?
So following on from the carbon question, I think it's really important to nip in the bud this concept that productivity negates environmental benefits, and that if you have one, you exclude the other, and that there's no way to farm profitably and productively without damaging the environment. So that seems to be the general consensus in the media, but we all know that that's not true. So just in terms of your approach to your farming systems, what environmental benefits have you seen on your farm?
Yes, it's a tricky one to kind of populate and manage to see if there's a difference. I think, having diversity and sort of seeing things flower throughout the year, chickweed's still going for it, there's red clover flowers out there, and that you think, well, that's got to be a good sign for, pollinators and, insects out there. It's very hard to kind of, put a kind of figure on it really, but you got a feel for what is working. I think is probably half of it. Yeah, if you call deer environmental, I'm doing very well. I think probably. But you know, no, I think it's a hard one to judge. But I think, you know, like seeing it in action. I know, I think you'd say there's probably more insects and more birds about the farm and everything else like that. But it's a hard one to quantify.
I guess the one you can quantify most easily is that you're using a lot less purchased feed, which is less phosphate coming onto the farm, and then you're using a lot less nitrogen fertiliser as well, which is nitrate coming onto the farm. So they're, now how they've affected the farm in terms of enhancing biodiversity, you need to do some surveys to get some quantifiable evidence, but those inputs not coming into the system means that some of those inputs aren't going to be leached back out into watercourses or into the atmosphere. So that's a very tangible difference that you could really quantify.
Yeah, I think the pigeons are flying around going, thank you, but that's all I know.
Yes, just echoing from what James said. 3 years ago we had 3 Arctic loads of fertiliser. This year we didn't buy any fertiliser, so there's less leaching, less all that sort of stuff, as well as your blends which you buy in. We used to buy 18 tonnes of blend a month during the winter. Now we don't buy any. So it's just keeping things more natural in the cycle.
I've definitely seen an increase of deer on our farm. By the era of growing more grass. But one thing is my shooter chap's very happy about it. But yeah, no, definitely seeing lots of more birds and insects and stuff like that around. Especially in the corner of the fields you don't need to use no more, which just gets fenced off and forgot about.
And one of the things that we had to do when we went organic was to start doing the fecal leg counts, particularly with the lambs and the sheep, and therefore we're using a lot less any wormers. This year we had a bunch of lambs that ended up not having any wormer at all before they went off to the abattoir, which, you know, is a great achievement. It's not something we achieve every year. But the fact that we're not having to use that man time and, you know, those wormers, that's not going into the system and therefore has to be making a difference. But one thing that the first time that we actually did a fecal leg count, Bob was actually convinced that, you know, they had a worm burden and they needed to be drenched. When the results came back from the vets, there was no worm burden, but the lambs had coccidiosis. Which was something that we hadn't treated for ever before. So, you know, had we gone ahead and not done the account, we'd have treated them for something that wasn't going to do them any good and make them any better anyway.
Yeah, no, we've seen a massive change in what's biodiversity's on farm. Mid-season, when everything's flowering, it's just clouds of butterflies. Masses of birds, masses of beetles, and it's all good. It's all good. I think it's got to be positive.
I guess the nice thing about Tom is you haven't managed for that. That's not a scheme. That's not something you've just grown especially for them. That's a productive lay, which has the added bonus of providing habitat.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of the way we're farming.
Which is really good. And the kind of point I wanted to make is there's that nice saying, isn't there? Is that if you can't just expect a premium, you need to earn it. And so if you think the meat you're producing or the meat, milk or wool on farm you're producing is better, and the way you're farming is better, then it's for you to provide the evidence that that's true. And the evidence might be by doing the using a carbon calculator and working out your carbon footprint. It may be by getting someone on farm to do a bird count. If you can't provide the evidence, it's your word against theirs, isn't it? And Tom Talbot mentioned, you know, the premium for nutrient-dense food will be coming forward. And I'm sure it's true, but you need to provide the evidence that that nutrient-dense food is being produced in a system that's having a positive impact. And the evidence is there to be collected. And the best time to collect it is the year you start, and the second best time is today. So sometimes we can say, well, the way I'm farming is great, but unless you provide the evidence, it's really just your word against theirs. So it's nice to hear people's thoughts and opinions, but at some point you sort of put a line in the sand and say, yeah, this is what we counted, this is what we've seen. And photos will do an equally good job, whether they're photos of some soil structure or some worms. It's just building a picture of your farm and how it's changing. So you've got some evidence to say this is where I've come from, and this is where I am now, and this is the impact I'm having.
Okay, we're going to sort of wrap up with some sort of legacy questions. So what's the long-term vision, and how do you see things changing in your plans for the future?
I guess where I would like to be is to take more workload out of the system. The Holy Grail would be what a lot of you stood in front of and been waffling on about out in the field there, which is a winter cold crop mix that we can out-winter cattle on with no added supplements. To me, that seems a bit of a holy grail. Whether it's doable, we'll see.
For me, it has to be running more days off farm, not actually working in the business, but working around the business. So making sure that we get, things have been fairly busy in the last 12 months, having taken on a new farm, but I'm hoping that that's not going to continue for too much longer.
So where I'm thinking we might be heading is probably more to the organic sort of side, whether that's potentially with more cattle and less sheep, and moving to a carbon outdoor system, so less housing, and I'd love to take more time off work and go on ski trips.
Yeah, to follow on from that, 3 weeks of skiing, that'd be looking at organic, that would be nice to move on to that sort of system and to get that premium for what you produce, as well as looking into the carbon credits, that space to see, the BPS will be going to see if we can add more money to the business using that sort of calculation. It's all unknown at the moment. I don't know, I haven't really looked into it much, but there are a lot of clever people out there who can help us on that. So if there's a way which they can help farmers and help the businesses improve, that would
I think we'd all. I think we all strive for more time off farm. I think, farmers, they're in the West End. We are farmers because we love the work, we love the challenge, and we're quite happy with the 5 to 9, not a 9 to 5 quite often. But it is sort of working to that sort of balance in it. I think that is our long-term vision. That we want to be able to enjoy time with our family, we want to have that time off, but at the same time we still got the hunger to succeed and drive forward. And I think within Precision Grazing, we've had discussions on sort of the optimum sustainable output, and it all sort of comes together quite well, and the environment can be benefited from a sort of a low input system that still produces a decent profit and a sort of a work-life balance. And I think building up towards that, keep improving what you're doing and sort of aim for that is the key for the future for me.
Right, that's awesome, Chris. Is there any final questions before we really wrap this up? No. Right, thank you. Well, first of all, can I thank my fellow chair, Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being part of this session. And then can I thank our panellists, so Tom, Liz, Tom, Sam and Chris. Can we give them a round of applause, please?